1. I'm male and 26, and the background here is that I was a fourth-year dental student. This happened around 2 months ago. During our schooling, we need to go on rotations where we either do work or assist or do something productive for our education. So here I am getting all excited because it's the last rotation I need to do. Gotta go to a private office and see patients and do some checkups and stuff. I arrive at 8 a.m. and start talking to the assistants and hygienists to build a relationship so my last day can go smoothly. I start noticing that every operatory is sealed off with glass doors and plexiglass walls. They did this because they installed COVID filters on the ceiling of every operatory and needed to close off every room for the ventilation to work properly. So everything is all nice and dandy as I get to know where I would be working, the equipment they have for me, and my schedule for the day. Perfect. First patient at 9 a.m., so I'm hyping myself up and getting ready. 9 a.m. rolls around and the patient no-shows. So I'm like, okay, cool. I guess I'll just chill. The lead doctor says, don't worry, we've got one for you at 9:45 and 10:30. You'll have work to do. 9:45 comes. Second patient no-shows. 10:30 patient then also no-shows. Very odd day for everyone because apparently this isn't supposed to happen. They start calling afternoon appointments to see if anyone can come in early to fill the spots, so I can do some work. Finally, someone comes in at 11 a.m. and I get started. I take x-rays, do the checkup and cleaning, call the lead doctor to verify everything. Things are going swift. By this time, I've already gotten to know some assistants and hygienists, since we have been chatting it up. They're all very nice and sweet, and telling me how it usually is at the office and giving me pointers. So when this patient comes in, they're all happy to assist me and make my life easier. I finally get finished with this patient, and the next one shows up early for an afternoon spot. I finish typing up my note and cleaning up the operatory. I ask the lead doctor if I can bring in the next patient, and she responds yes. So I get up, and instead of walking towards the door side of the room, I walk towards the plexiglass side. Big mistake. It was harder to see that there was plexiglass even there with all the PPE we had to wear. But regardless, it just entirely slipped my mind that they even had it there. As one would expect, I just walk straight into the plexiglass. But instead of me just bonking my head, I straight up break a huge hole into the plexiglass wall. Straight Kool-Aid Manning a hole. There was an assistant inside the room with me, and two were literally walking by at that exact moment. Everyone just stopped, and it was dead silent. Everyone was looking around at me, and I was just standing there like a complete idiot, like WTF just happened. After like 5 seconds of silence, reality hit, and I start profusely apologizing, and all these assistants and hygienists just start bursting out laughing. I'm like, please, let me help repair this, I can try to pay for it, please forgive me, etc., etc. And here they are having the time of their life, taking pictures and just laughing. All the while, this patient is just waiting in the lobby. So I ask the lead doctor again, and she says don't worry about it, and just bring in the next patient. They told me to just work in the same operatory, so I'm like, okay. And bring the patient in to start working. Turns out while I'm working, they're still having a blast in the background and taking pictures. They even print out a picture of the Kool-Aid Man and tape it on what's left of the plexiglass to post to take a photo. Thankfully, that was also the last patient on my schedule, and the doctor was super understanding. They didn't ask me to repair or pay for any damages, and even asked if I would ever be back. I was like, nope, thanked them endlessly while apologizing, and peaced out because I think maybe I'm just straight bad luck to this place. 2. This happened back in February of this year. Trigger warning. Poop talk. I'll start off my story by telling you that I was constipated for like 2 weeks before the incident. About 3 days before the incident, I decided I should probably buy something to help me go, since I was getting extremely miserable. I bought milk of magnesia. I had never taken it before. I haven't ever taken anything to help me go, so I read the directions, Follow them to a T, I drink it and wait. 1 day goes by, nothing. 2 days go by, still nothing. So I decide to take another half dose of the drink. I stay up late in hopes that I'll be able to relieve myself. Nothing happens, so I decide to head to bed. 3 a.m. I wake up to the sound of beeping. My husband wakes up at the same time. The beeping is extremely loud, and we were confused at first. Probably from being awoken suddenly at 3 a.m. We turned on the light, and our room was so filled with smoke that we could hardly see in front of ourselves. Confused, we run downstairs. Couldn't find anything. Went outside and discovered that our laundry room, a small addition to the side of our house that isn't really attached to much, and doesn't have a second story above it, was on fire. My husband immediately starts running buckets of water from inside the house, all the way outside to dump it on the fire. Meanwhile, I'm calling the fire department and getting all 3 kids and the dog out of the house and into our van. I yell at my husband to get out of the house because he's still running buckets of water like the little rascals at this point. The operator tells me the fire trucks are around the corner from my house, and to move out of the driveway for them. So I pull out of the garage that I've pulled out of hundreds of times, knock the mirror off my van. I'm shaking so bad and have such a stomachache that I literally cannot even drive. Luckily, my husband ran out and pulled the car into the yard away from the house. The fire department immediately gets to work on putting the fire out. My family is sitting in the van in the yard, waiting, hoping. I'm feeling all the emotions, but mostly like I'm about to explode. I'm a nervous pooper, always have been. So as you can imagine, this finally unlocked my back gate. I tell my husband, "Honey, I know this is like the worst timing ever, but I have to shit. I have to shit so bad." He might have been slightly irritated with me. There was something else going on that was way more important. I said, "I think I might shit myself." Finally, the fire chief comes with an update. It was out, but they were inspecting to be sure. I said, "I know it isn't great timing, but do you think I can go in and use the bathroom? Other side of the house from the fire." He told me no, because it wasn't safe yet and went back to work. Understandable. But I had to go worse than I've ever had to go in my life. I told my husband that I had to go, now. So I took baby wipes out of the diaper bag and trekked through nearly knee-deep snow in my Crocs without socks to go shit liquid lava in my own wooded backyard. Needless to say, after 2 weeks of not being able to go, it was a lot. It was as if, in this very instance, Hodor stepped away and released this motherfucking kraken of all shits. While I hung from my pooping branch, splashing shit on my Crocs, it took a moment to realize I was mostly in my neighbor's backyard. As I shuffled from his tree to one of ours, I thought to myself, is this how I die? Did I make it out of a house fire with my whole family only to shit all 28 feet of my intestines out into the neighbor's backyard while he watches firefighters save my home? Hopefully he's watching them, not me. Somewhere around my 5th trip, my husband begins to get irritated with my inconvenient shit. He cracks a line something like, "Count on you to make a house fire all about your bowel movements." I have tummy issues, while pressuring me to stay in the van and help with our children. A single bead of sweat developed at my forehead. I knew number 6 was on the way. I knew there was no stopping it. I grab a second pack of wipes and hack my ass like Alexander Supertramp back through the briar bushes into the wild to the outdoor laboratory to dump some of the most foul dump I've ever dumped in my life. I make it back to the van, 10 pounds lighter, with a smile on my face, completely forgetting that the reason I'm shitting in the woods is because my house was on fire. Finally relieved. There was no shame in the moment, even though they had our road blocked off and people were lined up in their cars waiting to go to work, probably watching me walk back behind my house, curious, not knowing that I was going back there to shit my guts out. Maybe the neighbor guy knew. Maybe not. He is close to 100. It's been almost 4 months since that day. We ended up having to stay in a hotel for over a month while they started fixing and removing smoke from everything. The fire was more than likely an electrical fire. We aren't 100% sure. It was worse than we thought because we have metal siding that was hiding a lot of the fire. We have great homeowners insurance. Thank you, Jake from State Farm. Anyway, be careful taking milk of magnesia, because you never know when your house might spontaneously catch on fire. The irony is that this is written from the comfort of my indoor toilet, not the woods behind my house, or my neighbors. 3. Pre-fuck-up. I'm a 37-year-old male, and it seemed like as fine a day as any to drop off my car at the garage for an oil change and inspection, and asking my grandpa, 85, to pick me up since the place is always busy and it could take hours. I think I should note that my grandpa is very capable of driving and has not demonstrated any signs of needing his license taken away, and typically only drives in our town. He did agree to meet me at the garage, so I drove the couple miles, and while I was inside getting checked in, he pulled up right at the front door. After I finished checking in, I got in his car and asked him if we could swing by a local really popular breakfast restaurant drive-thru on the way back a half-mile from the house. He agreed, and we pulled into the drive-thru, like he's done tons of times. I need to paint a picture of how this place in the drive-thru is set up, since it is crucial to the fuckery about to go down. The parking lot. This restaurant is situated on a concrete lot that slopes up from the main road, with the restaurant itself occupying a huge amount of space right in the middle of the lot, and all the way towards the back of the lot are 2 small shops. The restaurant has parking in front, and the shops have a small parking lot in front of them towards the back of the lot. As you pull into the lot, you are already in the drive-thru, but there is a through lane just to the right of the drive-thru, and the through lane has 3 parallel parking spaces to the right of it, against the edge of the lot. There is not a lot of space in this parking lot at all, and it feels very cramped. If there are cars in the drive-thru and cars parked in the parallel parking spots, only the smallest of the cars can pull through without hitting anything, and the bigger vehicles tend to wait and merge with the drive-thru traffic to pull through. However, there are no indicators how traffic is supposed to behave since it's private property, so most of the time a vehicle using the through lane will often yield to drive-thru traffic. The traffic in the through lane is hard to spot when you have to quickly swing wide to make a left turn out of the drive-thru. The lot is so cramped and busy, I often park in the next door lot, and walk over and walk inside and get it to go. The fuck-up. My grandpa pulls into the drive-thru lane and we get through the menu board and the drive-thru window with no problems. It was only when he went to pull away from the window I noticed a large black SUV had got half its length ahead of us, when my grandpa began turning and looking to his left, not noticing the SUV. In the following few seconds I began saying "careful" repeatedly as his passenger front bumper got closer and closer to the SUV driver's side rear bumper, and not slowing down, so I loudly yelled "stop!" Just as he did, the 2 cars contacted each other very softly and almost imperceptibly. It was so subtle he asked me, "Did I hit it?" And it was clear from the white-on-black scrapes on the SUV, he had indeed. The SUV stops so close to the parking spaces in front of the couple shops, and my grandpa parks in one of the spaces. At this moment in time, my grandpa and I just think it's an unfortunate accident, and it really wasn't anyone's fault, and the insurance companies will figure it out. Once parked, my 85-year-old grandpa gets out to see the damage with his t-shirt on that said, "I paused my game to be here." We exchanged post-automobile accident pleasantries with the SUV driver, who was a woman that looked in her 30s. She was driving in the through lane to get to her office in one of the small shops on the back of the lot. The 2 of them exchanged their viewpoint to what happened, until getting to this awkward point, where they both feel the other is at fault, but neither want to say it out loud, so I suggest they exchange insurance information and contact info and let their insurance company sort it out. They exchange information, and she asks if they need to call police for a record of what happened. I mentioned that it happened on private property, but do what she feels is necessary, so she calls a cop friend who sends out an officer. By the time the cop arrived, I had already ate my entire breakfast. I just had to have, instead of going home and having a bowl of Frosted Flakes. Since the cop was there, the woman felt comfortable saying she didn't think it was her fault and her insurance shouldn't have to pay for repairs. The cop says it happened on private property and suggests just letting the insurance companies handle it. We took pictures of the damage to both cars, exchanged contact and insurance info, and went back home with me feeling like shit. The aftermath. You know what's worse than asking your grandpa for a small favor that causes us to get in an accident? Having to explain it to my 84-year-old grandmother who may or may not have her hearing aids in. For the rest of the day, I got to listen to my grandpa yelling about how I asked him to go through the drive-thru and got into an accident. Then he and my grandmother had to tell my mom, my uncle, my brother, the in-home health nurse, the mailman, and whoever would listen. I know I wasn't actually the cause of the accident, but if I hadn't asked to go for breakfast, it wouldn't have happened. Despite as mentioned above, about my grandpa's license, his reflexes couldn't react fast enough even with me yelling at him to stop, and that kind of worries me. Somewhere on that woman's phone and the cop's body cam is my octogenarian grandpa rocking a "I paused my game to be here" t-shirt. 4. This happened a few days ago. For context, my brother and I just finished a trip to Cuba. It was fantastic overall. Due to the trade restrictions, we are told to bring clothes or medicine to leave behind for locals. In Havana, we meet a local man, Jorge, who showed us a dive bar and some cool Santeria artifacts. I happily paid for the drinks, offered him a Pepto-Bismol I brought from our country, and explained it was for stomach aches and diarrhea. Now, we're savvy enough to avoid street food and tap water, but it's entirely possible some ice melted and released an onslaught of unsavory contents into our cocktails with Jorge. While I foolishly patted myself on the back for my generosity, my brother and I had no clue what tragic irony was in store for us the following morning. We woke up at 7 a.m. for a day trip to Viñales Valley to see the Cuban countryside and tour some tobacco farms. As soon as we hit bumpy roads, my brother and I made eye contact, in the silent understanding that our stomachs were not all right. We made beelines for the bathroom upon arrival. I thought I was in for the worst shit of my life when I saw we had to pay 10 pesos for a couple pieces of toilet paper in a pretty run-down facility. Boy, was I wrong. I felt much better after that 10-peso poop, but I realized we must have food poisoning, and I had just given away our most powerful weapon to Jorge. We told our guide a bit of what was going on, and he asked if we have any Pepto-Bismol. Classic. Wanting to make the most of our trip, we prepared to go for a walking and horseback tour off the beaten track of the valley. Not 5 minutes into walking through pineapple, sweet potato, and cornfields, I felt another deep rumbling in my bowels. I pulled the guide aside as casually as possible and asked how far we are from a bathroom. He assured me I could run off wherever I want, fat chance, or wait another few minutes until we meet a local farmer. With my cheeks firmly clenched, I managed to make it to the house. I rushed inside, shook hands with an 80-year-old Cuban farmer and his wife, said a quick "Mucho gusto," and asked to use the bathroom. Much to my chagrin, this whole house was one room, and I could still see the elderly man in his chair from the bathroom. I was beyond caring about privacy, so I went to sit down, only to see there is no toilet seat. We can still work with this. I crouched over it and let rip. After a short but powerful session, I realized there is no toilet paper. I begrudgingly resigned myself to pulling up my pants as is. Unfortunately, it seemed the sink wouldn't work. I made the previously unthinkable choice of flushing again and using a bit of the downflow to wet my hands for a wash. When I rejoined the group, I saw they were having piña coladas and about to ride horses to our next stop, a tobacco drying shed. Being the idiot I am, I decided to partake not only in the drinks but also in the horseback riding, having just blown up the bathroom without wiping. Not my wisest choice. I was thinking as I bounced up and down with mushy pants and a churning stomach. But at least I'm done with my worst shit ever. Wrong. We arrived at the tobacco barn and got to see the 5th-generation farmer talk about the process and even roll cigars for us. About halfway through his spiel, I felt the worst rumble yet. I knew then I had to get out of there, or I would shit my pants within seconds. I scampered out the back of the shed in search of a spot under cover. I saw horses, dogs, and even a couple Cuban farmers, so I had to think fast. There was a perfect spot in the trees, but it was in perfect view of the shed's back door. As a last resort, I hopped the fence into the tobacco field, pulled down my pants, and prayed for the best. My legs were almost shaking from the sheer force of this field shit, so I knew I had to try to wipe somehow. I just grabbed the nearest weed and tore off a couple leaves, hoping they wouldn't irritate anything, and wiped as well as I could. At that point, my crazy series of events made me feel like the butt of a direct TV commercial that ends with, "Don't fertilize a Cuban tobacco farm." Nevertheless, I pushed through and rejoined my group as normally as possible, as if they all didn't know what was going on with my colon. I hope the universe doesn't prove me wrong, but these will probably go down as the 3 weirdest shits I've ever taken, all because I decided to give away Pepto-Bismol exactly before the day I needed it most. 5. A couple months ago, I got a new phone. Yay! I decided to get a new phone because the one I had been acting up, even with a replacement. I went to my carrier store with a cousin who knows technology more than I do to pick out a phone that will work. The lady helping me asks for a phone number. Since my mom is the primary account holder, I give the lady hers. The process is going well, and we are setting up my new phone with most of the data transferred. The lady asks, so the number of, and says my mom's number, is now active on this device. My heart drops. I tell her that's not my number, but my mom's number. She seems fine until I tell her my mom's a real estate agent. For those who don't know, they get calls several times a day, and some, like my mom, have set up ways for the phone to let you know about appointments. We both kinda have a "oh fudge" moment. The lady and me desperately try to fix the issue. The lady thought this could be fixed without my mom having to come to the store. But since my mom has a different model phone than the one I was getting, she has to come to the store to get her phone turned back on. We try calling my mom's office, but the new phone rings. This means she has left the office for the day and has set up her phone to receive the calls. We tried emailing her, FaceTiming her, calling her fiancé, and so on. It was no use. I told the lady that I had to face the music and went home after I paid for and got all data transferred on the new phone. I knew that my mom would eventually come home, so I waited in the living room, which is near the front door. She arrived less than 30 minutes later after I had arrived home. She was speechless and had one of the most frightening expressions I have ever seen on her face. She, in her mom tone of calm fury, asked what did I do. I explained the situation to her and told her we have to go to the store to get her phone back in order. We silently got into the car and drove to the store. The lady was still there, and we reactivated my mom's phone. We quickly got it taken care of and got back into the car and drove home. When we were almost to the house, my mom asked if I was scared of her right now. Me, not the lying type, admitted I was frightened of what might happen. She told me she was upset, but realized I didn't do it on purpose. That was probably one of the biggest mistakes I've made. Thanks for listening. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Embarrassing Stories, episode 93. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. If you yourself have a story you'd like to share, then please write it down and send it along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. That's kingofthecities@gmail.com. And you can find that email on the screen that you're not looking at right now, and in the description of every video. Alright, let's see. Oh, also you can use that email for birthday shoutouts and any other Hellfreezer-related correspondence. Right, I think we just have a question of the day today, I believe. Yes, the next birthday shoutout is in June. Okay, so, Hellfreezer's question of the day. Right, what is the most contradictory health-based thing that you do? Like, mine used to be, I want donuts, I want snacks, so I'd walk to the store and back to get them, which was, usually about an hour or so's trip, if I knew exactly what I was going to get. But at the same time, I'm buying donuts. Or getting, like, plant-based foods and that sort of thing, and then putting real cheese on them. Or full-fat mayo, that sort of thing. Well, not mayo, salad cream. Salad cream's better. So, what are yours? Let me know in a comment below. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.